Research by Dr. Shauna Young made a big difference for this family and their struggle with autism.
There were no peaceful moments with Nick when he was a baby. Developmentally, at probably about 3 months, we were first evaluated. Some friends would say, I don't think this is quite right, I don't think this is quite right. And he was my 6th child, so I knew. At 3, Nick was hospitalized with meningitis and encephalitis. He lost the ability to do everything except breathe. He started having seizures. He went into a coma there and was in a coma for a little over a week.
Meanwhile, on the other side of the country, Shauna stumbled across a very interesting article.
So I went on the internet and I finally asked just the right question, and it popped up a really wonderful Weston Price article called Manganese Madness. And this was a situation that started all the way back in prior to 1900, back in the 1880s, where an English physician had actually found local manganese miners that were having all of these weird symptoms. And they were having hallucinations, they were having trouble speaking, they were having trouble keeping their balance and walking, all of these kinds of things. And when I put all these symptoms together, it just sounded a lot like autism.
Nick was hospitalized with meningitis and encephalitis. Then we started having anger issues, screaming and raging. He came home on a seizure medication because of the seizures associated with the meningitis and encephalitis. At that point, we were looking at a diagnosis of bipolar disorder. He couldn't sit in a chair and eat his lunch. He stood in the chair and walked in circles while he ate his lunch. He climbed the shelves in the closet.
Nick is very far out of what I usually work with. What I work with usually is more the mainstream of autism and autism spectrum disorders. Sometimes the kids are on a medication or 2 or something like that, but this was so extreme with the 6 medications, with them being antipsychotics. He was very violent at the time, and he was either threatening me or threatening himself pretty much for the whole thing. And when you see that coming out of that angelic little face, it's very scary. But I told his mom, I said, look, I don't know if we can do anything here, but it can't hurt.
We had tried diets before. We had tried a lot of things before. And we were already on a fairly healthy, whole food kind of diet, not a lot of packaged things. We had been gluten-free, casein-free for a long time, and we're used to eating whole foods. So on Monday morning, the foods just changed a little. There were no grains, and so some things were coming out of the house. The neighbors got a lot of free food.
Manganese is not something people think about, and the sources of manganese are the ones that are frightening. Soy, especially baby formulas, vitamins, cereals, especially a lot of children's cereals. They are fortified, it says, fortified with manganese. Why?
Right after Shauna made her discovery, she had a remarkable experience with a young patient.
Iron and manganese take the same receptor sites in your brain. So I thought, well, if his manganese is too high, what if I gave him some iron? I wonder what would happen. The child does not like meat that much. He likes vegetables a lot better. So I ran down a whole bunch of high iron vegetables. So we were getting him to eat raw spinach and black cherries and, just some things like that were high iron. You've been on the diet for 8 days, and I said, is anything different? She says, well, he started talking. And he hadn't spoken since he was 1.5 years old. And he was now approaching 4. And I said, what did he say? And he was eating a spinach salad with both hands, and she said, boy, you're really liking that salad, aren't you? And he says, yeah, I eat it all up.
Armed with these amazing results, Shauna began to work with Nick.
For the first time in 3 years, my husband sat right here on Sunday at lunch and we had a family meal together. My husband sat here and cried. We had not been able to sit as a family and eat a meal in 3 years because Nick couldn't sit at the table.
The way that the diet falls out is there's a best list and then a moderation list and then a don't eat it. And we point out right up top that the don't eat for now list, that most of those foods return to just fine once you're off the protocol. This is used therapeutically and it's used for a finite period of time.
The diet's pretty easy. It's a lot of food that I grew up eating. It's not a problem for us to eat this way. It does mean you're not going through the drive-through, but shouldn't be anyway, probably. Nick is able to go places with us now. Nick had not been able to go to church, go to school. He can do things like other kids now. We started this protocol 6 months ago. Nick was in devastating circumstances. There was this much hope and just a boatload of bad, and I didn't know what his future would be. Within 3 months, we were off of all medications. We've gone 180 degrees from this much hope and this much devastation to all hope, tons of hope, and a bright future.
Sweet potato.
Sweet potato.